Good morning. This is Corrine. I woke up this morning with all sorts of thoughts in my head, and I'm starting to realize how healing it is to just get up, get my coffee, go in the backyard, and just start letting those thoughts out. Because otherwise they just swirl in my head all day, and it's hard to actually get normal things done when I'm thinking about concepts all the time. Another helpful thing is also, I think, to journal, because I do also journal in the morning. But I'm enjoying doing these videos because sometimes I'll look back at them, or I'll do a video, I'll feel down about something, and then I'll go back and look at the video and go, oh, actually, I told that to myself, and it reinforces some things that I may have forgotten about, and so that's really helpful. And today, or just this last day, I've been really thinking about being the black sheep of the family, and why it's so important to be proud of being the black sheep. It's difficult to be the black sheep when you, particularly in your family of origin, if you get married and have kids, usually you choose that person, so it's more unlikely to be a black sheep in the family that you choose than the family that you grow up in. I think it's actually, pretty common to be a black sheep in your family of origin, especially if you're INFJ or empath, just because it's so rare. If the INFJ is the rarest personality type, if you're an INFJ, you may not necessarily have INFJ or INFP parents. My feeling is that the INFJ and the INFP overlap so much that they can actually get along quite well. But if you're thrown into a family with other personality types, or if you feel a certain way within your family and your family has a certain tradition and you don't feel comfortable with that tradition or that way of being, and you want to be yourself and you want to be your authentic self, it's very difficult to break away from that, especially if you're dealing with your parents and they don't support it. For myself, I'm INFJ, and I grew up with a ISTJ father and an ESTJ mother, and which are very practical personality types, not the philosophers, which is more what I am as an INFJ. And I grew up with an ESTP brother, which is probably the exact opposite of the INFJ. And so, as you can imagine, we had a very hard time relating to each other. And I always felt kind of out of it. I was the one who was always, I had my head in the clouds. I was always thinking of things. I was always philosophizing about things. I was always imagining things. Whereas my family lived very much in the concrete, real world for the most part. And they believed in, the values of hard work and making a lot of money, and that was what you did, and that's what made you ahead. And if you didn't do that, you were some kind of loser. I mean, that was just the basics of it. And also, they came of age in the 50s. My parents came of age before the 60s. So they had just a very practical attitude. The Great Depression wasn't that long before it. They were born after the Depression, but still it was in their parents' minds. And so, it was a very practical way of growing up. And personally myself, my mind went to all sorts of crazy interests, and things that were not necessarily practical. I tended to be drawn to the humanities, to things, I'd lose myself in books. I'd spend a lot of time imagining, and that was where my comfort zone was. And when I tried to fit myself into my parents' world of practical education and looking for those professions that would make the most money, because money, of course, would make me happy, right? Which we now know is not true. And I think any INFJ will take freedom over money any day. I did. And it did finally, bring me happiness to accept that freedom. So the question is, and you can be a black sheep in all sorts of different ways. It certainly doesn't have to be in a way of certain personal interest. It can be, or with, money and careers, it can be all sorts of things. It can be religion. You might grow up in a very religious family and you don't feel comfortable in that religion. You might grow up in a very traditional culture from a certain country and you don't feel completely yourself within that. And so there's so many reasons to want to break out of that mold that your family has established. But it's hard because, like I said in my last video, they're your gods. They're the people that took care of you growing up, and you have this doubt in the very back of your mind of, what if they're right? What if I break away from them and I fall and everything falls apart and they're right and I'm wrong? And I think it's that little nagging part of you that keeps you attached and keeps you in this pain. And all I can say is, you got to take that step forward. You got to move out, because it's worse to not be true to your authentic self. You have to stay true to your authentic self. And yeah, maybe things will be a little bit harder, but the freedom that you'll get, the freedom of being yourself, is more reward than money. And I think really what it is the importance of going straight to happiness. I grew up in a home where they said, well, you find the practical job and you make lots and lots of money, and then when you retire at 65 and you have money in the bank, then you can be happy. That was sort of the philosophy, and I'm like, well, what if I don't make it to 65? What if I want to be happy now? And the fact is, you can be happy now. If you value freedom more than money, you'll be happy living a lower quality of life. You'll be happier in a studio apartment than in a big house if you have your freedom. For me, I needed to do self-employment. I needed to do humanitarian work. As a INFJ, I am drawn to humanitarian work. Humanitarian work does not pay a lot of money, unfortunately. But you can get your basic needs met and have your freedom through self-employment. It is possible. And if you can do that and be the black sheep and stand in your own validation, you got to be proud of it. You've got to be, they're gonna look down on you. Your family of origin, if they're all on the same page and you're not, they're going to look down at you, because there's that strength in numbers. But you got to stand in love, defiant in love. And, all you can do is love them. Love is the most powerful, it's the most powerful thing in the universe. There is nothing more powerful than love. You can't really argue with them because they're so set in their ways. I get on the phone with my parents and I think this time I'm going to explain to them in such a way that they'll understand me, that they will finally understand me, and they'll go, oh, we see why you live your life the way you do. And I cannot count how many times I got on the phone to try to do that, and it just didn't work. And I got off the phone, I felt worse than I did when I was, got on the phone in the first place. So, if people are good for you, if if you get on the phone with somebody and you feel worse when you get off the phone with them, they're probably not good for you. If you get on the phone with someone you feel normal, then that's a normal person. If you get on the phone with somebody and when you hang up you feel much better, that's a good person for you. And so, your family of origin, if they don't understand you, if they don't make you feel better after you talk on the phone with them, you need to kind of step back a little bit. And I'm not saying you need to disconnect completely from them. I mean, some people do. Some people, in order to just be sane and get rid of the anxiety and depression, they do have to sever ties. But I think in a lot of cases you don't. You just have to step back and stand in your own power and validation and be proud. Be proud. It takes a lot of courage to go against tradition. It takes a lot of courage to take that path less taken, and be proud of that. Be proud of your own strength and your own courage to do these sorts of things, and don't back down. Stay with your authentic self. If you stay with your authentic self, even if you have trouble, if you struggle a little bit in the real world, you'll still be happier than if you compromised and did something that you really or went along with something that you're really not happy with. So I hope that was helpful. That was what was swirling in my head this morning. And, I struggle with this black sheep thing. There are times I get off the phone with my parents and I just want to cry. And I've been struggling with this for 20 years. But if I remind myself to be proud of myself, to be proud of what I've accomplished so far, to be proud of the fact that I've took the path less taken, then I feel better. Then I feel a certain sense of comfort in my decisions in life. Well, I hope that was helpful, and I hope everybody has a great day. Thanks.